welcome to today's explainer. Let's just take a breath for a second and clear away the noise. Today, we're embarking on a journey inward. We're not going to talk about what other people think about you, those external opinions or all that noisy chatter of the world. Instead, we're looking directly into the mirror of your internal self-image. Because, honestly, long before anyone else treats you a certain way, you've already treated yourself that way internally. So let's take a look at that picture you're carrying on the inside. I want you to sit with a really gentle but kind of provocative question for a second. When you imagine yourself succeeding, what do you actually feel? Do you feel excitement, peace, or is there this strange, uncomfortable knot in your stomach? Do you hear this quiet little voice whispering that you don't belong there? You see, so many people sabotage absolutely incredible opportunities, not because they lack the ability, but because success contradicts their inner picture. Externally, everything is lining up perfectly, but internally, the image just hasn't caught up yet. Because the truth is, you simply don't rise above how you see yourself. Self-image is the silent driver of your behavior. It doesn't shout, it whispers, and then your life just obeys. It dictates how you speak, how you show up, the opportunities you say yes to, and the relationships you tolerate. Bottom line, you will always act in alignment with who you genuinely believe you are. Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the mirror of identity, internal perception versus external reality. So many people walk around thinking they have a confidence problem, but confidence is just an expression, right? It's the external output. Self-image, on the other hand, is the foundation. It's your internal blueprint. Think of it like a house. If your foundation is cracked, painting the walls with fake confidence isn't going to hold the house up. You don't actually have a confidence problem, you have an identity problem. Moving on to part 2, the Grasshopper Syndrome, when you shrink yourself. So this phenomenon actually comes from a story in Numbers 13, where spies went out to explore a promised land. They came back and reported, "We were like grasshoppers in our own eyes." Now notice something absolutely crucial here. The giants in the land didn't call them grasshoppers. The land itself didn't reject them. The problem was 100% internal. They shrank themselves first in their own eyes. And that is the Grasshopper Syndrome, literally disqualifying yourself and assuming you're too small before anyone else even has a chance to evaluate you. When you're infected with this syndrome, fear becomes your interpreter for, every situation. Comparison becomes your measuring stick, which means you're always going to come up short. Intimidation becomes your default conclusion. You start pulling back from opportunities even when you are totally, fully qualified for them. You end up admiring other people but quietly shrinking yourself. Ultimately, you walk into rooms already defeated, not because you don't have the capacity, but because your perception has already decided the outcome for you. And that brings us to a hard but really necessary truth. Life doesn't shrink you, perception does. You literally become your own ultimate limitation when you overestimate everyone else and underestimate yourself. I mean, you don't even need enemies when your own perception is doing the job of keeping you small. But hey, the good news is, if perception is the thing shrinking you, perception is also the exact thing that can set you free. Part 3. Tracing your deep roots. Where exactly did your self-image come from? Think back to childhood for a minute. What early messages or expectations were handed to you by caregivers or teachers? Were you ever told you were too sensitive or not enough? Then you got to factor in past failures, those really sharp moments of rejection or criticism that left literal fingerprints on your identity. Add to that cultural expectations, those unspoken societal rules about who belongs and who's even allowed to succeed. Over time, all these repeated negative messages just accumulate. They morph into your present beliefs, and you end up carrying around these toxic lies disguised as absolute facts, a normal reality that is actually boxing in your life. But here is the absolute incredible hope in all of this. Self-image is taught, which means it can be retaught. Actually, let that sink in for a second. Your internal limitations are not a permanent destiny. They're not some fixed label you were handed at birth. They are simply a learned story. And what can be learned can absolutely be unlearned. What was taught can be retaught. Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, rewriting the story, from awareness to reality. So how do we actually do it? Well, it's a structured process. Step 1 is awareness, because you literally cannot change what you don't see. You have to start noticing your physical tension, those hesitations, your internal assumptions the second an opportunity pops up. Step 2 is truth. You have to anchor yourself in faith and reality to counter all those lies you've been believing. And finally, step 3 is practice. You can't just think differently once and call it a day, right? You have to make daily, conscious choices to reinforce this new, healthy story until it just becomes your default. For a lot of us, faith provides the ultimate foundation here. Psalm 139 offers this perfect counter-narrative to those lies. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. This affirms your inherent, God-given worth way before you ever achieve or perform a single thing. When you anchor your truth right there, that giant standing in front of you suddenly doesn't look so big, because you know exactly who you are, and more importantly, who made you. And finally, part 5, the lived reality, stepping into a healed self-image. When this inner transformation really takes hold, your challenged identity, that false belief in inherent smallness, is actively dismantled. Your healed identity goes right after those specific wounds of past rejection and childhood conditioning and just washes them away with truth. Your strengthened identity becomes rooted entirely in your God-given worth and your massive capacity. And the ultimate takeaway here? It's a brand new awareness that your inner assumptions literally dictate your external reality. Healing doesn't begin when your circumstances change. Healing begins the exact second your perception changes. Think about where we started. At the beginning of this explainer, you probably believed, like so many of us do, that you are limited by your capacity, your skills, or just your external circumstances. You thought the giants were keeping you out of the promised land. And man, that is a heavy, restrictive mental state to live in. But now you understand that you are only ever limited by your perception. The cracked mirror has shattered. The light is finally coming through. Your story isn't over. It's just ready for a brand new author. You have the power to completely rewrite the narrative, to strip away those toxic lies disguised as normal reality, and to stand tall in your inherent worth. So I want to leave you with one final, really provocative question. Who would you become if you truly saw yourself right? Not the version limited by fear or those old, tired stories. The real you. I challenge you today to visualize your life fully aligned with that truth, and then take just one bold step toward it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, keep looking in the right mirror.